This happened a few months ago. I inherited a cabin from my great-uncle. I'm Jake, 32, and I was excited to explore it. I hoped the piece would help with my writing. The drive there felt long. As I approached, the cabin looked old and lonely. It stood surrounded by tall trees and a calm lake. I felt nervous but tried to brush it off. When I entered, the air felt different. The place was quiet, almost too quiet. I put my bags down and found a rickety table. There was an old notebook on it, its pages worn and yellowed. I picked it up. The writing was shaky. The first rule said, "Do not wander after dark." I chuckled, thinking my great-uncle had a wild imagination. I flipped through more pages. Avoid the lake at midnight. Never go into the woods alone. The more I read, the more uneasy I felt. It was like someone was warning me. That first night, I wrapped a blanket around me and sat on the porch, listening to the night sounds. But soon my mind played tricks. I heard rustling in the bushes nearby. My heart raced. Maybe it was just a deer or something. I looked but saw nothing. Shadows danced at the tree line, and I shook my head, trying to shake off the feeling. The next evening, whispers floated through the air. I glanced around and felt cold fear creep in. I grabbed the notebook again and saw new entries. Don't answer the knock. If you see the shadows, stay still. I felt sick. I had not written these. Was I losing touch with reality? Each night I tried to stick to the rules. I stayed indoors. I noticed the shadows more often, flickering just out of sight. Felt wrong, like I was being watched. I began doubting myself. There was something in the woods that didn't want me there. On the fourth night, I heard a firm knock at the door. I froze. My heart pounded. I wanted to look, but fear held me tight. I thought of the warning. Don't answer the knock. The silence after was heavy. It swallowed the night. Then, I heard a whisper, "Why are you afraid?" I scanned the room. No one was there. I felt paralyzed. All I could think was I needed to leave. But photos of my great-uncle seemed to watch me. They each wore a serious expression. I fell into bed and covered my head with a blanket, hoping it would go away. But the whispers continued, wrapping around me like a fog. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block it out. The rules felt like chains holding me against my will. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was part of something darker. Maybe I could just leave in the morning. But the idea twisted in my gut. Nothing felt safe here anymore. I lay there waiting, hoping for dawn. The darkness loomed, and I knew I had to get out. But something felt like it wouldn't let me go. As the first light of dawn broke through the trees, I felt a flicker of hope. Morning seemed like a promise. I quickly gathered my things, ready to leave this unsettling place behind. But when I opened the door, a chill ran down my spine. The air was heavy, more so than I remembered. It felt dense, like something was pressing down on me. The sunlight filtered weakly through the leaves, casting long, jagged shadows on the ground. I looked around, a knot tightening in my stomach. Then I saw the notebook. It sat again on the table, despite having left it on the floor beside my bed. I hadn't moved it. My heart raced as I approached the table. Each step felt weighty, reluctant. What else was happening here? Had I really thought I could just walk away? As I picked it up, I noticed there were more entries than before. I flipped through the pages, my hands trembling. "Prepare for the Watcher" was scrawled across the top of one page. My eyes widened. Had my great-uncle known about something here? Who or what was the Watcher? Suddenly, a loud snap echoed from the trees. My heart lurched. I rushed to the window, squinting through the grimy glass. Nothing moved. The forest stood still, but there was something in the silence that felt wrong. I turned my attention back to the notebook. "Trust the shadows," I read. That made me shiver. It was nonsense. The shadows watched, yes, but trusting them? I felt torn. I needed answers, but I couldn't stay. A voice nagged at me, urging me to figure out the secrets of this cabin. What if I left and never uncovered the truth? But the fear of the unknown held me tight. I descended the porch steps and stepped onto the dirt path leading to the lake. I had to reach it before I lost my nerve. Every rustle and crack of a twig sent impulses of dread shooting through me. I looked back at the cabin. It stood silent, but it felt alive. What was waiting for me inside? Approaching the lake filled me with a sense of dread. The water glittered, holding the morning light like diamonds. But as I stared, an unsettling thought crossed my mind. What if I didn't really want to go back? I held my breath. So this is it? I murmured to myself, glancing over my shoulder one last time. When I saw it, a figure standing among the trees, shrouded in shadow. I stumbled back. My breath caught as I squinted, trying to discern who or what was watching me. But in that moment, the figure vanished behind the trees. Panic surged within me. I turned to run back to the cabin but froze when I reached the porch. The door was open, swinging slightly. The air that had once felt like a lifeline now felt like a trap. Something had changed. I felt like I had no choice. I had to go back inside. But what awaited me in there? I stepped inside the cabin, the door creaking ominously as I pushed it open. The air was still thick, almost suffocating. I quickly moved to close the door behind me, but I hesitated, listening intently. Was that a whisper? I shook my head, trying to dismiss it. I was letting my imagination get the better of me. The notebook still clutched in my hands, I returned to the table. I leafed through the pages again, hoping to find more answers. Each entry felt more frantic than the last. Never leave food out after dark, one read. The watcher comes at night. My pulse quickened. What had I gotten myself into? Just then, a soft thud came from the back of the cabin, making my heart race. My breath hitched as I turned, peering down the narrow hallway. Shadows danced along the wall, and I could swear I saw something move. My instincts screamed at me to escape, but I felt rooted to the spot. "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. Silence followed, thick and oppressive. I took a step forward, glancing nervously at the rooms that bordered the hallway. I felt exposed, as if the shadows were alive, watching my every move. As I neared the end of the hall, I spotted a door slightly ajar. A warm breath of air escaped as I approached. The room beyond was dim, but I could see what looked like more notebooks scattered across a desk. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The desk was covered in dust, the pages atop it yellowed and crumbling. Each notebook was filled with various notes and sketches. My heart sank when I uncovered a drawing. It depicted a creature, half shrouded in shadow, eyes glinting with a predatory hunger. I flipped to another page, more entries about the watcher. "Don't let the watcher in," one warned, with frenzied scribbles around the edges. The frantic tone played in my mind. Was my great-uncle trying to protect me? Protect me from what? Before I could process the implications, I heard it again, a soft thud, this time closer. I turned, frozen. The door behind me swung open with a sudden gust, revealing a dark, swirling void. The unmistakable sensation of being watched hit me. My skin prickled. "No, no," I murmured, retreating back to the desk. The thudding noise steadied, now sounding more like footsteps. Something was moving in the cabin, something that did not belong. I gripped the edge of the desk, my knuckles turning white. I had to decide. I could hide and wait, or I could confront this entity that loomed in the shadows. My breath quickened as footsteps echoed round the corner, drawing nearer. When I spotted something under the desk, a hidden compartment. I knelt, my fingers trembling as I pried it open. Inside lay a small, glimmering object. It pulsed with an eerie light. What was it? I didn't have time to think. The footsteps were now at the door. I felt a surge of adrenaline. I needed to choose quickly. Grab the object or look back to see who or what was at the threshold. I grabbed the glimmering object, my instincts overriding any sense of logic. It felt warm against my cold fingers, a strange comfort amidst the growing dread. The footsteps paused, just outside the doorway, and adrenaline surged through me. I had to stay quiet. Holding my breath, I forced myself beneath the desk, pressing my back against the wall. The object lay beside me, casting a faint glow that illuminated a portion of the dark space. I dared not make a sound as the footsteps shifted, a shadow blocking the faint light spilling from the door. What was lurking out there? I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to drown out the fear. It felt wrong that I could hear only the soft rustle of fabric. Moments passed, and silence stretched thick around me. I debated making a run for it, but the instinct to stay hidden felt stronger. Suddenly, the door swung open wider, and I risked a glance. A figure stood framed in the doorway, tall and indistinct, its features lost in the murky light. I stifled a gasp. It was too dark to see clearly, but I could feel its presence, heavy and palpable. Before I could react, it stepped inside, moving slowly, deliberately. I pressed deeper against the desk, heart hammering in my chest. What did it want? Did it know I was here? I caught a glimpse of something in its hand, another one of those notebooks. Panic shot through me. Had it found the notes I read? Did it know about the Watcher? The thought sent my mind racing. I waited for whatever it was to leave, but it lingered, scanning the room. With a sudden quiver, the object in my hand pulsed again, as if responding to the figure. I held my breath, feeling a strange connection to it. I wondered if it was trying to speak, to warn me, or worse, if it was a beacon drawing the figure closer. Just then, I heard a soft rustling sound, a noise from the corner of the room where the creature now stood. It stiffened, spinning around as if startled. My heart dropped. The Watcher was still out there. In a moment of clarity, I knew I had to make a decision. I could either reveal myself, hoping the object had some power against the creature, or remain silent and risk being discovered. The tension in the room became unbearable, and the figure's attention shifted back toward the entrance. I felt a moment of desperate hope. It was distracted. I had to act now. That I slipped the glowing object into my pocket, barely noticing its warmth. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. With one swift motion, I crawled out from beneath the desk, ready to confront whatever was at the threshold. But when I stood, the room was empty. A sudden rush of air blew past me, extinguishing the soft glow from the object in my pocket. The figure was gone, but I could still feel the weight of its presence lingering. Then, from the edge of the hallway, I heard that same whisper again, clearer this time, and it sent chills down my spine. "You shouldn't be here." I bolted toward the door, uncertainty clashing with instinct. I had to find a way out before whatever ID uncovered turned against me. But as I reached the doorway, I froze at the sight of something unexpected, a new notebook, untouched, lying in the middle of the floor, inviting yet foreboding. What now? I stepped closer to the notebook, my pulse racing. It was totally out of place amidst the chaos. The cover was worn, its edges frayed, but it looked pristine compared to its surroundings. With shaky hands, I picked it up, my fingers brushing over the faded title, "Rules of the Cabin." As I opened it, I felt my breath catch. The pages were filled with tight, neat handwriting, each word inviting yet unsettling. "Don't leave food out after dark," one rule read. "Always close the windows before midnight." A chill ran down my spine. These weren't just random notes. They felt like warnings that I tore my eyes away but barely heard the soft clicking as the door at the end of the hall squeaked open. My heart dropped. Had the figure returned? I wasn't ready to confront whatever prowled outside. Not yet. I quickly tucked the notebook under my arm and darted back beneath the desk, hoping to remain unseen. With my back against the cool wood floor, my mind raced through the rules as I strained to hear any signs of movement. The room was silent again. But for how long? Just when I thought the coast might be clear, I heard a sound approaching, a slow, deliberate footstep followed by the unmistakable rustling of fabric that echoed off the walls, and I could feel the air shift. Panic clawed at my throat. What if it was the same figure? The one with the notebook? I held my breath, resolving to stay silent, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Then, to my horror, the footsteps stopped. The figure must have sensed my presence. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears as I clutched the notebook tighter, its edges digging into my palm. "Do you think you can hide?" A voice floated into the room, low and menacing. A shiver crept over me. It was the same voice from before, the whisper that had warned me. I couldn't tell if it was just a figment of my fear or something real, something that knew I was trapped. And in my desperation, I snuck a glance from beneath the desk. I could see the figure standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the dim light of the hallway. It seemed to be searching, scanning the room slowly. Then it turned on its heel. I thought I might escape, but instead, it faced the wall directly in front of me. "Rules must be followed," it murmured, barely above a whisper. "Or there will be consequences." The air grew heavy, and I swore I felt a draft creep along my skin. Suddenly, I remembered the last rule I had read. "Do not provoke what you cannot see." My mind raced. What could I do? I glanced back at the notebook, considering the rules again. Maybe it held answers or at least guidance. But would it be enough to protect me from what was coming? Just when I thought I had a plan, a loud crash erupted from the hallway. The sudden break shattered the heavy stillness, sending me careening back against the desk in shock. I felt my body go rigid as adrenaline surged through me. Whatever had been lurking was no longer patient. That S when I saw it. Flickering light deep down the hall, a figure shrouded in shadow. And behind it, something else was moving rapidly toward me. An indiscernible shape that filled my stomach with dread. I needed to escape, but the only way out was through the figure that stood guard. I took a deep breath and forced myself to hold still. The figure in the doorway seemed to be waiting for something, its presence heavy like a storm cloud. I could see the light flickering against its silhouette, but the shadows still concealed details I desperately wanted to understand. The sound of the crashing thing grew closer, but the figure remained rooted in place, as if it was anticipating a confrontation. My heart raced. I couldn't stay hidden forever. I had to make a choice. My gut screamed for me to find a way out, but I couldn't help but wonder what would happen if I just made a run for it. "What are you waiting for?" The voice rasped again, sharper this time, as though it could sense my indecision. "You can either follow the rules, or you can face the consequences." The earthy smell of the cabin mixed with the trepidation rising in me. I glanced at the notebook tucked tight under my arm. Was there something in it that could save me? My thoughts fought for clarity. I needed a distraction. That's when I noticed something shiny on the floor just beyond the figure's feet. It looked like a small metal object, maybe part of a broken lamp. My eyes darted between the figure and the object, muscles coiled tight. Could work. If I could just get it to move, I could slip past and out the door. I took a chance. With a subtle gesture, I nudged the corner of the notebook with my foot, sending it across the floor. It skidded under the desk, just beyond reach but far enough to catch the figure's attention. "What's that?" It leaned down, peering into the shadows. I could see it scrutinizing the space with an intensity that was equal parts curiosity and danger. It turned its back to me, and I took my moment. I pushed myself out from under the desk and bolted toward the hallway. But as I took my first step, I felt a wave of cold wash over me. The air shifted again, and I could sense that something more powerful was close behind, but I couldn't turn back now. I rushed forward, my feet pounding the wooden floor. The light flickered crazily, casting strange reflections that played tricks on my vision. The hallway felt long, stretching endlessly, and I could still hear the faint, growing sound behind me as it followed. I dared a glance back, and my stomach dropped. The figure was right there, not far behind, its shadow stretching out like dark fingers reaching for me. There was a door at the end of the hallway, slightly ajar, and I made a desperate charge for it. I didn't know where it led, but staying felt like a more dangerous option. Just when I reached for the handle, a piercing scream erupted from behind, one that froze the blood in my veins. I swung the door open and dashed inside. Darkness enveloped me. I stumbled, the terrain uneven, but I continued clipping deeper into the room. Panic swarmed my mind as I recalled what I had read. Do not provoke what you cannot see. I had to find a way to protect myself from whatever hunted me. Then, in the pitch black, I felt something brush against me, a cold, tingling sensation that suggested I wasn't alone. I froze, my breath shallow. I had come too far to turn back, but I was no longer sure what lay behind me was less terrifying than what I had just run into. And that's when I screamed. The scream echoed in the darkness, bouncing off the walls like a trapped animal. I didn't know what I was afraid of more, the shadowy figure behind me or whatever was lurking in this room. My instincts told me to move, but every nerve in my body screamed for me to stay still. In the heavy silence that followed my outburst, I strained my ears for any sign of what was out there. The shadows felt alive, shifting and pressing in around me. I took a tentative step back, my foot connecting with something soft. Crumpled under my weight. "Who's there?" I whispered, the words coming out shaky. Silence answered. I couldn't risk being caught off guard again, so I squinted, trying to adjust to the lack of light. I didn't want to be here, but where else could I go? Then I noticed the contours of the space around me, a cramped room lined with shelves. It smelled of dust and age, and a faint light flickered at the far end. My mind raced as I stumbled toward it. If there was a way out or something to defend myself with, I needed to find it. When I reached the flickering light, my heart sank. It was a single bare bulb swinging from the ceiling, casting an eerie glow on a table strewn with books and papers. Shapes of various objects loomed against the walls, their outlines indistinct but somehow daunting. That I flipped through a few of the papers. Most were worn and yellowed, filled with handwriting that looked chaotic and frenzied. As I sifted through, a large, beautifully bound journal caught my eye. I opened it, my fingers trembling. The first page read, "The Cabin's Rules, First Edition." My gut clenched. I had seen those rules before, at least some of them. "Don't provoke what you cannot see," flashed through my mind. They were serious. Then I caught a glimpse of the next entry. "You must only enter through the front door. The back doors are forbidden." My pulse quickened. The hair on my neck stood up. Hadn't I just come through a different door? A prickle of fear crawled up my spine. Suddenly, the electricity in the room flickered and went completely dark. I froze, clenching the journal to my chest. A weight settled in my stomach as I stood in the pitch black, the silence crushing. I could no longer ignore the sensation of being watched, a prickling awareness behind me. What had I done? I thought about how I had flung myself into this room, into my great-uncle's twisted legacy. As the fear swelled, I inhaled sharply, and in that moment, I heard a low whisper slip through the darkness. It was chilling and soft, curling around my ears like a breeze. "You should never have come here." Then, the air felt even colder, and I was struck by an unmistakable presence closing in around me. I tried to back away, but my feet felt glued to the floor. A cold breath brushed against my neck, and I knew I wasn't alone. Not anymore. That's when everything swirled into chaos. The swirling chaos faded into a deafening silence, except for the phased-out hum of my pulse. I stood frozen, the hairs on my arms standing on end. The presence was palpable now, an undeniable weight pressing down on me. I desperately needed light, something to illuminate the shadows that flickered at the corners of the room. I took a deep breath and fumbled my phone from my pocket. My hands shook as I clicked the flashlight on, the harsh beam slicing through the darkness. It illuminated the clutter around me: dusty books, crumpled pages, and old trinkets that looked like they hadn't been touched in years. But what caught my eye was not just the mess. I noticed something moving. A shadow in the corner jerked into focus, darting behind a shelf. My breath caught, but I was too curious and scared to look away. "Hello?" My voice cracked, echoing back sharply. I took a step closer, directing the beam toward the edge of the shelf. The books and papers tumbled slightly at my approach. Were they disturbed by something? As I stepped forward, a rustle interrupted the silence. I flinched, and a cold, sharp laugh seeped from the darkness, winding through the shadows. It was a mocking sound, vibrating with wicked delight. "Who's there?" I yelled, trying to summon the slightest bit of courage. Yet, my voice wavered, sounding small in that desolate space. The laughter faded, replaced by a whisper. "They always come the same way." The voice slithered around me, every syllable dripping with menace. I turned abruptly toward the source, the flashlight beam dancing wildly as if I could somehow chase away the darkness. And then I saw it. A figure, perhaps a boy or a young man, with wild eyes staring back at me from behind the shelves. His clothes were ragged, and his expression was twisted with a sinister grin. Panic surged through me. "You shouldn't have come in here," he said, stepping into the light. She doesn't like visitors. Who? I stammered, as dread curled in my stomach. The words tumbled out of my mouth before I could think. What do you mean she doesn't like visitors? He tilted his head, studying me. The one in the shadows. He gestured around the room, as if it was a living thing. You disturbed her. You're not supposed to be here. The room felt colder somehow. My mind raced as I thought of the journal and its ominous rules. Had I broken an unspoken law? Was this boy part of whatever lay within the cabin's legacy? The walls began to hum softly, and the shadows thickened. I could feel the tension weaving into the fabric of the air, heavy and constricting. I clutched the journal tighter, heart racing as I realized what the boy was implying. Who are you? I asked, a tremor re-entering my voice as reality swallowed my bravado. He smiled wider, his eyes glimmering with something dark. I'm here to show you the way out, but you have to listen carefully. Panic surged through me, but part of me was desperately intrigued. I needed answers, and he seemed eager to provide them. Yet, uncertainty gnawed at the edges of my mind. What was waiting for me if I followed him? I hesitated, my instinct warning me to turn back. But the boy's demeanor was cryptic, like a puzzle I had to solve. What do you mean by way out? I finally asked, my voice firmer now that he stepped closer, the shadows clinging to him. The way out of here isn't just about leaving the room. It's about leaving her. If you don't follow the rules, she won't let you go. Who is she? I pressed, grasping for clarity. A flicker of fear crossed his face, quickly replaced by that unsettling grin. She's the one who watches, the one who guards this place. He searched my eyes, clearly reveling in my fear. You can't defy her. You must play by her game. Game? My pulse was racing again. What do you mean? He glanced around the room, almost nervously, then leaned closer. You must do what the journal says. If it tells you to leave by a certain time, you must go. If it says to speak to her, then you must listen. But don't forget, every rule is a trap. My hands gripped the journal tightly as I considered my options. I had already shattered the silence of the cabin. What could happen if I continued to defy whatever malevolent force lingered here? Why are you helping me? I asked, suspicion creeping into my voice. Because I want out too, he replied with casual indifference, like it was the simplest reason in the world. I've been trapped here far too long. She has plenty of visitors, but most never make it out. I swallowed hard. An ominous chill ran through my bones. What kind of creature was I up against? Was I merely one of the countless souls who had stumbled into her lair? What do I need to do? I asked, my resolve beginning to harden. Follow me, he whispered, taking a step back, gesturing toward a shadowy corridor behind the shelves. But stick to the light. Shadows consume. They devour those who stray. I felt my heart pound in my chest. What if I refuse? His smile faded, and a dangerous edge took over his voice. Then you will be part of her collection. Forever. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward, drawn into his dark promise. I glanced back at the cluttered room, the journal weighing heavily in my hands. Then something flashed in the corner of my eye, a fleeting glimpse. And there it was again, a shadow moving swiftly, barely more than a shape. Fear twisted in my gut. What was that? I gasped, instinctively taking a step away from the figures that danced against the walls. The boy's eyes widened for a moment before he recovered, urgency clawing at his face. Go. We have to move. She's coming. As the room darkened even more, I felt a chill seep into my bones. I took a shaky step forward, following him into the unknown. And in that moment, I knew I was no longer walking away from danger. I was stepping deeper into it. The closed corridor led to a narrow staircase spiraling upward. My heart hammered as I followed the boy, clutching the journal tighter, its rules spinning through my mind like a chaotic cyclone. Each step felt heavier, the air thickening with every creak of the old wooden stairs. I was determined to escape, yet the shadows felt more alive than ever, whispering soft warnings I could barely decipher. Keep moving, the boy urged, glancing nervously over his shoulder. The watcher wouldn't wait much longer. I didn't reply, barely processing his words. I concentrated on putting one foot in front of the other as he led me to the top of the stairs and into a small, dimly lit room. Light flickered from a couple of cracked windows, offering only a glimpse of the outside, a gray sky threatening rain. I felt an uneasy sense of déjà vu. This place was familiar, another echo of the cabin's foreboding presence. Here, this way. The boy gestured toward an old, rotting door opposite us. I hesitated. It hadn't been mentioned in the journal, and if there was one thing I learned from the rules, it was that uncertainty could be deadly. Are you sure? I asked, panic pulling my voice thin. He nodded fervently. We have to. It's the only way out. Trust was a currency I was low on, but desperation outweighed caution. I pushed open the door, its hinges protesting as we stepped inside. The room beyond was filled with dust and old furniture, remnants of something once vibrant now overshadowed by fear. In the middle, a large mirror stood, cracked and tarnished, reflecting swathes of darkness. I was struck by a sudden urge to touch it, driven by an instinct I didn't fully understand. Don't look into the mirror, the boy shouted, his voice coming out strained. It's a gateway. Whatever you do, don't let it in. My heart raced. I swiveled away from it. What do you mean? It's connected to her, he replied, his expression shadowed with worry. If you look, if she gets a hold of you, then what? Then you're lost, he said, his eyes glimmering with fear. Forever. The weight of his words sank into me as I glanced back at the mirror, its jagged glass warping the room's reflections. I felt an odd compulsion to look, but the urgency in his voice pulled me back. I pressed closer to the wall, the flickering shadows shifting around me. There must be a way out, a place to hide, I muttered, searching for any sign of a window or door. Something glimmered at my feet, another notebook. I reached down quickly, hoping for a clue that hadn't been distorted by the shadows. The moment I picked it up, a chilling whisper echoed, "Don't disturb her." Panic surged again as I glanced toward the mirror. The darkness began to swirl within it, pooling as if something were preparing to break through. No more waiting, the boy said, shattering the tension. We have to move now. Together, we darted toward a far wall lined with shelves. I scanned the dusty spines of forgotten books, hoping for a ray of sunshine among the drowning shadows. Here, I suddenly exclaimed, spotting a loose board in the wall that seemed out of place. Without thinking, I grabbed it and pried it free, revealing a narrow passageway beyond. Go, the boy urged, shoving me forward. I stepped into the dark space, feeling the damp air chill my skin as he followed closely behind. As we crawled, glimmers of hope mixed with fear. There was so much uncertainty ahead. But then I heard it, a rustling echo of a whisper growing louder. You shouldn't have come here. I quickened my pace, the narrow corridor closing me in. The air felt more oppressive, like the shadows were reaching for me, clutching at my edges. Then I saw it, a faint light flickering ahead, swelling through the darkness. Desperation propelled me onward, my thoughts racing. Who was the watcher? Who was this boy leading me? I had unanswered questions that twisted my mind with fear, but escape hummed in my veins. We finally reached the end of the corridor and emerged into another room, bathed in pale sunlight. I blinked, adjusting to the brightness, but I froze as I turned to look. Back. The boy hadn't followed. What? Panic surged through me that he stood in the shadows of the passage, his expression now somber. You have to go. The watcher is coming. You need to leave now. No. We escaped together. I protested, but even as I said it, I felt the deep instinct pulling me forward. Come on. He shook his head, that same haunting grin from before returning. It's my turn to stay. You have to keep going. The shadows shifted, swirling in the corners of the room. It's okay, he said simply. I wanted to help you. I just wish I hadn't gotten so lost myself. Wait. I started to step back, but he held his hand up. Just go, Jake. Follow the light. And before I could protest any further, he stepped into the passage, blending into the darkness. I watched as he disappeared, swallowed by the shadows I had come to dread. Cold shivers ran down my spine, but when I turned back to the room, The path ahead lay illuminated. I took a deep breath and ran toward the light, my heart pounding in my chest. The air felt lighter as I burst through a final doorway and found myself outside again, each breath being a moment of freedom. But I hesitated for just a moment, glancing back at the cabin. What had I really left behind? Who had the boy been? A glimpse of darkness flickered in the cracked windows, teasing remnants of what crawled within those walls. I fled the cabin, leaving behind scores of unanswered questions, uncertainty clinging to my heels. One thing was for sure. The experience had marked me. A whisper echoed in my mind. You shouldn't have come here. I never went back, even when the memories gnawed at me late at night. I survived, but at what cost? Sometimes, when the world felt silent, I thought I could hear the faint echoes of laughter drifting through the trees, a haunting reminder of the watcher, who might still be there, waiting.